The most important thing is understanding where there's a pivot. Where does the story take a different direction? Those are your pivot points. And what you have to do is draw upon the meaning out of that pivot point and realize that at some point in there, you have to go from me, the speaker, my thoughts, my story, to we. What do you get out of the story?
Say that again.
Cut out what you don't think you need. Get to it, because the proverbial elevator door is closing, and you better finish saying what you need to say.
That is a mic drop moment right there.
Beware of where you put your name. There is no other Fursey Gotuaco on this earth.
Well, dear listeners, we are back on another episode of Toast Talks with CoachBusi. My guest, our guest today, as you listen along with me, is none other than a gentleman who I have met on the Toastmaster streets, Toastmaster Fursey G. I will let him tell you what the G stands for. I do not want to butcher his name. Toastmaster Fursey, welcome to Toast Talks with CoachBusi.
Thank you, CoachBusi. It's a pleasure being here.
Awesome. Please, would you tell the listeners your full name so that I don't butcher it and they get to hear it just right?
My full name is Fursey Gotuaco.
Let me try that. Toastmaster Fursey Gotuaco.
There you go. There you go. It's
Made
close enough
it.
for rock and roll.
Made it. You learn something new every day, and you never know if you get it unless you try. So I'm glad I tried. Toastmaster Fursey, tell me a little bit about your background to Toastmasters. How did you become a Toastmaster, and which was your first club that you joined?
I was in Shanghai in 2017 and had a conversation with basically a stranger. And she asked me what I was doing. And I said, I was a theater teacher. I help kids overcome their fears of being in front of the audience. And she said, "Oh, I'm part of an organization that does that. It's called Toastmasters." And of course, she did what she's supposed to do as an officer of the club, got me to visit, and it's been a world changer ever since.
Are you still a part of that club that you joined the very first time?
No, that was in Shanghai. It's called Shujiahui. And I visit once in a while, especially online. I'll come in, I'll do a workshop for them. I've coached some of their people. And but since then I moved to Texas and then back into China, and then now I'm in Bangkok, Thailand.
We have a gallivanting Toastmaster, not just gallivanting online the way I do, but one who's actually moving from one location to another. I celebrate you. I'm one who loves seeing the world. It's such a big place, and seeing different people, different cultures is an absolute joy. Remind me again, you said currently you're in Bangkok?
Bangkok, yep.
Awesome. Toastmaster Fursey, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. In 1 to 2 minutes, would you unpack this for us as a table topic session? If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Over to you.
You see those chains around your ankles? Do you see how your wings have been clipped behind you? No, you probably don't. But you feel them, don't you? And you feel it not on your feet, not on your wings, but you feel it in your heart. You feel that limitation. So oftentimes I see people who are limited by their vision of themselves. Mostly these are students. And I try to get them to dream big and to see just how far they can go. but they can only see what they think they're allowed to see. They only see what society has told them they can be. And they're so limited by what they see. In China, they're very limited as to how much money you can make and the limitations of society. In the US, you're limited by the fact that, oh, the only jobs I know of are my parents' jobs and what I see on TV. They think that every lawyer goes into a courtroom. No, most lawyers are going to be hanging out in the library. But what we're really talking about here is understanding what you're capable of, regardless of what society you're part of. Do you as an individual understand who you are and everything that you can be? I mean, everything that you can be, not even level of knowledge you gain through formal schooling, but your talents. Once all of us, every single one of us understands what we're truly put great at, there is no stopping us. So don't worry about what you think your limits are. Consider yourself unlimited. Consider yourself free to fly the sky. Consider yourself free to yell from the mountaintops. And you will.
Wow. This is what I know you to be the master of. I know I threw you right into the deep end. But as always, a Toastmaster always rises to the occasion. And you did that in great style. Now, I would like to talk about your style of handling table topics. The last session that I had a young lady who is absolutely phenomenal at giving evaluations. And a lot of feedback has been coming on how valuable that was. So I decided that this session, we're going to unpack a little bit more about table topics. And what better way than to just start with a practical example? So I gave you a quotation which we had not even discussed. And on the spot, you needed to respond. And you did. You had me hanging on to every word that you were saying. Nailed it in my books. How did you frame the way to answer that question?
You know, a lot of people try to focus on the answer. In several different groupings of Toastmasters, they have a particular way of answering table topics.
Mm.
But the one thing that's always missing from all of these formats is your relationship to the audience. So everybody's working on the answer and nobody is working on the audience. And I'm a believer that you have to pay attention to your audience. Otherwise, who's listening? You're just up there droning on like some relative who doesn't really care whether you're listening or not. And you sit there going, Grandpa, why are you telling me this? So we have to know our audience and we have to connect with our audience. So the first thing you have to do is connect with your audience
Mm.
in some way, shape, and form. And sometimes that's got words, sometimes it doesn't even have words. Sometimes you're laughing and you're throwing the ball back to whoever threw you the question. So it's not even necessarily a table topic. It could be around the table at work.
Right.
It could be your boss when you're walking down the hallway. It could be a job interview.
Mhm.
You always have to make a connection with the person asking you the question. The next thing then is to deal with the answer.
Right.
Address the answer, address the question. And it can be 100% truthful or not. If someone
Absolutely.
asks you, what's your favorite breakfast food? You don't have to sit there and think, oh, do I prefer fruit or do I? It doesn't really matter. They want to engage with you.
Mhm.
So find an answer that's close to your truth, but realize that if you decide to choose a breakfast item that you like, but isn't necessarily your most favorite,
Mhm.
you're okay. They don't really want to know what your most favorite flavor of ice cream is.
Right.
Don't let that be a deal breaker. Instead, answer about ice cream or breakfast or
Mhm.
philosophical differences. Answer it in a way that you can give evidence.
Right.
So try to think of not just one, but two answers.
Mhm.
Because if one rises to the top, great. If not, then you can actually put them in different orders. You can even have one and then the second. You can compare and you can contrast. You can debate between the two.
Mhm.
And if you don't need the second one at all, then you're fine. So address the answer. The third part of that is you have to relate to it personally.
Right.
You have to relate to it on a very personal level to yourself. Oftentimes, this is a personal story. But if you get stuck with something that doesn't have a personal story to it, you can still talk about it in a very personal level. Maybe you know someone who relates to that. Maybe you speak of it philosophically,
Right.
but you're talking about it from a very heartfelt point of view. For
Mhm.
example, if someone started to ask me about children, well, I don't have kids myself, but I can understand and I can see from a parent's point of view what it must be like to see your child in the hospital. I
Right.
can empathize with that. And so you have to relate to it on a personal level. The last part of that is engage everyone. You have to re-engage. Sometimes it's a matter of touching back on the initial connection, but it's also a matter of, are you engaging everybody, not just the person who asked the question? Are you
Uh-huh.
throwing that question out? Are you calling people to action? Are you stirring their emotions? So the C, the A, the R, and the E, and you know what that spells. Care.
Yes.
And that's exactly what it's all about, is you have to care about the people that you're talking to.
Well, that just leads me to one of my favorite quotations. People don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Teddy Roosevelt.
There you go. Love it. Now, you went through that and you spoke about limitations, and I saw the educator in you because you drew from that. And I think that's something else that is key, and I would like you to speak to it. When you draw from personal experiences and the road you've walked, because a lot of people get stuck, and yet we have lived on this earth. For Toastmasters, it's minimum 18 before you can join. So the minimum you've been on this earth is 18 years by the time you're a Toastmaster. And at 18, you still have relatable stories, instances that you can draw from. Help the audience understand how quickly or how you filter the experience to pick what is relevant for the question.
Well, that's certainly going to be a whole lot tougher on a table topic when you have to have split second thinking.
Hmm.
Part of it has to be, what are you used to drawing upon? What experiences are you used to drawing upon? The most important thing is understanding where there's a pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the story take a different direction? Those are your pivot points. Those are your pivot points. And what you have to do is draw upon the meaning out of that pivot point and realize that at some point in there, you have to go from me, the
Mm-hmm.
speaker, my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, my story, to we. What do you get out of the story? You have to go from me to we.
Hey, say that again. That is a mic drop moment right there. Take me through that again.
You have to go from me to we. And to do that, you first have to consider, where are the pivot points in your story? Where does the story change direction? Some of those other details may not matter, but in your progress, in your
Mm.
journey, there are pivot points where the story changes. It changes direction, and it may change more than once.
Right.
There is significance in those changes. When somebody comes into your life and changes who you are or changes how you deal with life in general,
Mhm.
that's a pivot point. When you had your first child, pivot point. When you got married, pivot point. When you made a mistake and somebody forgave you,
Right.
or you learned something dramatic in your life, then that's a pivot point. It's a significant point, and that's what you want to show to your audience. If you're really not sure, then try this out. You tell your story in 60 seconds. 60 seconds. And for a table topic, 60 seconds is plenty.
Right.
Now try to tell it in 30. Now try to tell it in 15 seconds.
Ooh.
Same story, but cut out what you don't think you need. Get to it, because the proverbial elevator door
Mhm.
is closing, and you better finish saying what you need to say. You better say it. Otherwise, it's like the person you want the job from is leaving the elevator. You
Right.
better get to it. Stop doing this and get to it. So now it's 15 seconds. Now you know what's important about that story.
Ooh.
And to senior Toastmasters, the next thing is now take that 1 minute story and now elaborate. Develop
Mhm.
it into the 4 to 5 minute story so that you can take that story and use it in a keynote. That's
Right.
how you play with your story and you make like an accordion.
Goodness. I feel like
Too much?
I've been in a masterclass. It's not too much. It's just right. And as we are having this interview, we're now heading into contest season. So for a lot of people who are smart, they will use this as a resource and they will start implementing some of the things you've said. Thank you. I have enjoyed that part about table topics. The other thing I would like to talk about is a story that I've heard you share, and I would like the listeners to get to know you a little bit more as I ask you to share that story. One, because the story was relevant and it caught my interest, and I'm sure it will do so for the listeners as well. And secondly, I love the way you tell your stories. So, this is not so much for table topics, but just the art of storytelling that is captivating, engaging, and Toastmaster style. I would like you to show off and flex a little bit about how we do it in Toastmasters. As you tell me the story, which I haven't given you forewarning about your father telling you, be careful where you write, where your name is seen. I love that story. I may not have got the words correctly as your dad said them, but I'm sure and I can see you know the story I'm talking about.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
are all ears, Toastmaster Fursey.
I was wondering which story you were going to pull from.
Now you
I
know.
think I think it's important that we remember the people in our lives who have influenced us, shaped us. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. In this case, it was positive in the long run. And it was an important story to me because my father is a very philosophical individual. I mean, it embodies who he is and how he speaks, that he doesn't just give you a yes, no. He'll speak of things philosophically. He could have just told me it stemmed from the fact that I went and wrote my name on a bathroom chalkboard, not even a wall where it was naughty. It was a chalkboard. There's chalk there. We're supposed to do stuff. Of course, most stuff people did was pretty raunchy. It was pretty bad.
Mhm, mhm.
And that's what he was trying to say, because I wrote my name up there and he said, you know, beware of where you put your name. And it takes into account the fact that we have names.
Mhm.
You and I, we have first names, we have last names. In my case, there is no other Fursey Gotuaco on this earth.
Mm.
And any other Gotuacos out there are related to my family because it started out as Go. And because of our time in the Philippines, they lengthened the name. So there is no other Gotuaco who's not related to me.
Right.
And what we do with our name is so important. As John Proctor says in the play The Crucible, it's my name, and it's the only one I'll ever have.
Mm.
And for some people, putting their name up on their door or on their desk or on a brand, that's what they want. And I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. But it was when my student came back to me and said, this diploma, has your name on it.
Mm.
And when he sent me that letter, it was astounding. It floored me because it had been about 10 years. It had been about 10 years since I knew the kid, and he still remembered me, and he hunted me down on Facebook.
Wow. Love it. So be careful where you put your name. And another nugget was your name is the only one you will have. When we think about things like that, it's what brings joy for me in Toastmasters because you have just given so much information. Imagine for a visiting Toastmaster, someone who is thinking about contemplating becoming a Toastmaster, and they get into a club, and such a speech is given in 5 to 7 minutes. They're coming out of there with information they can apply right from walking out of that meeting. And
Absolutely.
this is the power that comes with Toastmasters. The stories are rich, they are real, they are relatable.
Yep, absolutely.
And I
I think
love
one of
that.
the things that we always have to remember, though, in Toastmasters is what then are you going to do with that story,
There
right?
is.
Like, what way are you going to impact the world? And what are the specific ways that this is going to help you in your real life? It's an important thing to me that we as Toastmasters, as present Toastmasters, that
Mhm.
we take care of this organization
Yes.
the next 100 years. You know, I had the privilege of going and visiting the original YMCA in Anaheim.
Okay.
I in Santa Ana. And I was down there in the basement with Peter Wong. We weren't even supposed to be there. But I put on because it's under construction, put on a hard hat, and I'm like, this is where it all started. This was
Oh,
the original spot that it all began.
wow.
And we talk about the last 100 years, but Coach Busi, I'm concerned about the next 100.
Come on now.
I don't think we can keep doing what we've been doing. We can't just coach people up to do good speeches in Toastmasters.
Come on.
We cannot be about a Toastmaster style. What it
Mhm.
has to be is how can I help you with your world outside of Toastmasters? Because people forget. Not a single one of us, not me, not you, not a single one of us joined
Mm.
Toastmasters for DCP points.
Come
Not
on.
a single one of us.
Come
So
on.
why is that the focus of what we do? What everything we do has to help that mentee, that officer, that new member, that has to help them in their real life. So the speech is great, and I love using it because I use it to
Mhm.
motivate my students. But ultimately, my job next as a Toastmaster is how do I engage that person that I'm talking to, that audience, to improve life for them outside of Toastmasters. That's our job. That's our
Bam.
job.
Bam. I am with you right there. And this is why we are always talking about Toastmasters is not for the public speakers. You do a lot of public speaking, motivational speakers, but it's also for the teacher in the classroom. It's also for the doctor who is now learning, scientists who are closed up, as they say, no, we are not people. We are not people. We are task oriented. In this world, that is now old. So I am 100% with you. And for the club officers, the importance is, as you say, to keep asking the members, why did you join? What is the relevance of what we are doing in your other life? I don't call it the real life because for me, Toastmasters life is real life. And that's why I keep telling people I meet my favorite people out on the Toastmaster streets because they are a place where I walk and I work and I have fun. One of the things that we are told is education, learning is best done in times of enjoyment. So if we hop on about DCP goals and things like that, more than the enjoyment part, people may not learn as quickly and as effectively as we need them to.
It's kind of like
Toastmaster
if you
Fursey G, you have been awesome. I have had such a great time interviewing you. I could go on for another 30, 40 minutes, but I don't want people to say, these Toastmasters don't stop talking. I'm going to ask you to give us your final words of wisdom for this session.
every one of us should be a mentor, and every one of us should have a mentor. And if it's in Toastmasters, great. It gives everybody a place to plug in, and it's going to give you a reason to stay in Toastmasters. It makes Toastmasters relevant. If it's outside of Toastmasters, that's still important because it's going to help us understand why Toastmasters is important to our lives wherever we are in our journey. So to Toastmasters out there, be a mentor, get a mentor, get a coach. You'd mentioned earlier that people are in the middle of contest season. I talk to people all the time about their contest pieces, and it's important that they know there's somebody who can help them. They don't have to feel like they're on a hamster wheel. There's so many people who can give them a little bit of advice, just enough to get to the next level. And that's what we're about.
Thank you so much. I am so grateful. And I know that you and I are going to be bumping it into each other in these interesting Toastmaster streets. And who knows, I may end up in Bangkok one of these days. And trust me, I'll be sure to give you a ring and say,
Come
hey,
on over.
Toastmaster
Come
first.
on over.
Ah, absolutely. And I know this is the network side of Toastmasters that we really don't talk enough about. But I know without a doubt from your reaction, if I just said, I'm on my way, I've got someone who will show me the ropes in Bangkok. So thank you so, so much for joining me today. And on behalf of the listeners, thank you very much. And I know those nuggets for table topics are going to be put to good use. For now, dear listeners, this is Toastmaster Fursey and Coach Busi bidding you adieu. Bye bye.